In Chapter 1, we have already covered the basics of Six Sigma. In the following chapter, we will cover the fundamentals of Six Sigma. And the first topic is about defining a process. A process is a very important concept and tool in both Lean as well as in Six Sigma. So we're going to give a definition about what is a process, why we need process, what type of process we have, etc. So the definition, what is process? A process is a series of steps and decisions involved in a way that a particular piece of work is completed within a business environment. It is a collection of interrelated work tasks initiated in response to an event that have to be completed in a very specific order in order to achieve a specific results for the customer or the process. Typically, a process output is either something tangible, like a product, or something intangible, like a service. We may not realize it, but in our everyday life, as well as in our working life, processes are abundant all over us. In the image, we can see a very basic diagram of a process. So we have inputs, which we called X's, and you may remember that we have critical process inputs highlighted with uppercase X's and less critical inputs highlighted as lowercase x's. Then we have tasks, activities, and decisions between the process start and the process end, and these are also indicated as x's, and the outputs are y's. Uppercase y's for the critical outputs, and lowercase y's for all the other outputs. We also have covered the topic of the power equation or the transfer equation. Y is a function of X, which means that each process output depends on a process input and a procedure, which we call the function. Now, in our course, we will be primarily dealing with business-related process. And if we take a look at the distant past, we tended to focus on the process outputs. For example, in traditional manufacturing lines, we might have inspectors or estimators looking at the units of products coming out of the process outputs and deciding if the unit was fit for purpose, so it could go forward in order to be sold, if it needed some rework in order to fix some minor defects, or if it was unusable, in which case the unit of product would be scrapped. Now, in the last few decades, with the introduction of methodologies like lean thinking, lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, DMAIC, etc., we have learned that instead of focusing on the process outputs, if we manage to get the process inputs right, as well as the process steps right between the process start and the process end, then we can be more or less certain that we can have consistent results in the process output. Here we have some examples of process, some of them associated with, a business operating environment, and some of them associated with our personal lives. Making a car door handle For example, in auto manufacturing, this is part of the assembly process in order to have a complete functional car that is ready to be sold to a customer. Filling in a purchase requisition, arranging travel, business travel, processing an order, transporting hazardous materials, which are known as hazmats, etc. So these are examples of business-related process. However, there are also processes in our personal life. Waking up in the morning is a process. So the night before we set up our alarm clock goes off at the predetermined time. Now we have two choices, either to push stop or to push snooze. In the latter case, after several minutes, the alarm will go off again, and eventually we push stop and we get up. Commuting to work is a process. Brushing your teeth or painting a room. This is also a process. Same thing applies for planning an event. For example, you may be planning a party, you may be planning a wedding, etc. Now, referring to process, there are several concepts associated with a process. The first one is the moment of truth, as we call it, or the abbreviated MOT. It is a point in time when a customer, internal or external, interacts with the business or the products and services provided by the business. Touch points. Touch points are associated with communication channels. For example, in some processes, we may have no touch points with the customer at all. And in other processes, we may have many touch points where the customer can touch either the business, the process, a product, or a service. So, a very important concept and measure is what we call the takt time. The takt time is a measure that is calculated. So it is the maximum available time we have in order to produce a unit of product in order to meet customer requirements. For example, if at the end of the day a customer wants 8 widgets and we have 8 working hours, then the takt time is 1 hour because we have to produce a widget per hour in order to meet customer demand. And finally, standardized work. This is the agreed best way to perform a task. So everybody should accept and follow the standards. In one of the images, you can see several instances associated with moments of truth and touch points. Regarding types of process, broadly speaking, we have 2 main types. If we're making tangible goods, like products, then we're talking about manufacturing process. However, if we're providing a service, then we're talking about a service. And service is further broken down in what is known as transactional or interactive. So, speaking about manufacturing process, this is the path between raw materials entering a process all the way up to the point where we have a finished unit of product. Regarding a service, this is associated with what we call the customer journey, the customer experience, how a service provides a solution to a particular customer. Service process can be split depending on the amount of end customer interaction with the process. I have put several examples indicating either manufacturing process or services. So let's compare the process types that we already mentioned in order to distinguish, what is specific about each type. So when we talk about manufacturing process, there are no touch points at all between the manufacturing line and the end customer. It is a series of repetitive tasks that are easy to standardize, and for this reason, easy to also automate. Takt time is a valid concept when we're investigating process waste. Transactional process, this is the type where we have a few touch points with the end customer. Again, these are repetitive tasks that are easy to standardize, but at a general level. For example, a call to a call center has many repetitive tasks, but the detail in each call and the discussion between a customer and an agent will vary. Takt time may be helpful when we're investigating process waste. And finally, interactive process. In this case, we have many touch points with the end customer. Repetitive tasks that are easy to standardize again at a general level. For example, a call to a call center has many repetitive tasks. The detail will vary between call and the next call. Takt time probably is not very helpful when we're investigating process waste. And again, I have included some figures indicating the different process types.